National Preparedness Month, Commo. Man, this is one that most preppers get wrapped around the axles about. They buy a Baofeng radio and they think the moment they take it out of the box they can communicate with the International Space Station or talk from Cincinnati to El Paso. It's not that simple. There are entire schools that the military sends people to be able to do that, and they have a lot more training, a lot more equipment, a lot more infrastructure, a lot more log train than you have. So, Commo is important. Without Commo, we have no logistics, and without logistics, we're probably going to become a statistic. That's a problem. But it's more about understanding when to commo, when not to commo, what to commo, and how to commo. Man, an inordinate amount of people, once they figure out how to use their radio, God forbid they program it, get on the radio and are just freaking chatterboxes all the time. So understanding like brevity, understanding how to talk on the radio, it's a big deal. The ham communities are terrible at this, just jacking their jaw about everything all the time. You know, a $120 unit in Bearcat 125A, I can find you using that piece off the shelf piece of equipment. And the more you talk, the easier it is to find you. Especially if you're talking at the same time every day from the same location. And that's me with minimal skills and off-the-shelf equipment. And so a big part of Commo is knowing how to talk and when not to talk. It's a huge deal. And because the ham, amateur radio community has become the civilian gatekeeper of Commo here in the United States, to the extent that most preppers know anything about Commo, it's because they got involved in ham themselves, or they have a buddy who's a ham. And I think there's a lot of bad practices from an operational standpoint that are being taught by a bunch of civilians that have souped up gear that are then teaching other civilians who have shit gear how to talk on the radio. At least that's been my personal experience. And make no mistake, I'm not pissing in all the ham's Cheerios. Y'all are important people and we need you, especially after emergencies. Very important. But there's a difference between after an emergency, fire, tornado, storm, flooding, loss of services, etc. That's different than I'm going to go operate operationally like an operator out in the woods. All right, well, if you're going to do that, if a rifle is part of your kit, that's probably an indication that we have a different set of rules for how we commo now. So, brass tacks, the stand-alone, the standout king of radios, handheld HTs, handy talkies, has become the Baofeng UV5R. It's better than a rock, but not by much. Construction-wise, quality-wise, it's a piece of shit. And people buy it because it's $20 to $50, depending on the demand and the availability and the time of year, thinking that they can check that box for capability. When the fact of the matter is, those things break constantly. I've personally broken a half a dozen UV5Rs. And I used to buy them back in the day when you could get 10 of them on Amazon for like $150. Cool. Remember that pre-COVID? Yeah, the good old days. Well, because I've had so many of them, I have bricked a half a dozen Baofengs. This is the Yaesu FT65. It's like a ruggedized Baofeng. It's a much better construction radio. Yeah, it costs more They're 150 bucks approximately, 120. Occasionally you find them on sale. Does all the things a Baofeng does. I don't break these. And I spend approximately, right now, I spend approximately 2 months per year in the woods, in the field, training, doing stuff, knocking tripods over, doing the things. Now, is this the best handheld radio? No, it's not. But for the price, to replicate the capabilities of a UV5R in such a way that you have some longevity with your system, I much prefer it to a UV5R. They break a lot less often. You should turn the Roger beep off on your radio. That's just extra noise, extra sound. It's stupid. You should turn the backlights off on your radio so that when you're receiving or transmitting, that your radio doesn't light up every time that you do that. You should program your radio. And if you don't know how to do that, find somebody who does. It just occurred to me that this whole thing is sideways. I don't care. I'm not doing it over again. Whatever. Here, I'll move you like that. How's that? This is not a highly visual video. This is more about the information. Program your radio. And that's part of the pain in the ass when your Baofeng breaks, is you got to reprogram it. What's your capability to reprogram radios after the balloon goes up, yo? Yeah. Upgrade your antenna. This is a Nagoya 16-inch antenna. Upgrade it from the little stubbies. The wattage on the radio matters, but it doesn't matter nearly as much as the quality and type of antenna that you have. So upgrade your antenna. And you can hook this 5-watt radio into myriad different antennas. And without getting super technical here, if you have the right height, the right line of sight, the right frequency, the right amplitude, you're going to be able to talk a lot better than if you have some bullshit little stubby plastic thing stuck to the top of your radio. So antennas matter. This antenna on here effectively doubles the range of this radio in this terrain that I'm in currently. That's not nothing. And if I get to a high point, yeah, significantly better than that. If you're going to use external push-to-talks, like I have one here, these are more prone to breaking. The Baofeng ones, the cheap Chinese shit, they're terrible. This is a Yaesu brand, and it's significantly better. It's not perfect, but it's significantly better as far as being ruggedized and the longevity of it. Understand also, if you have a whole bunch of accessories that are Baofeng, those are, I believe, Kenwood pattern pins, and Yaesu's, I believe, are Motorola pattern pins. Whatever it is, they're different. The spacing on these two pins right here on the side of the radio is different between a Yaesu and a Baofeng. So don't expect all your Baofeng push-to-talk accessories to interface with your Yaesu, because they won't, because the pin patterns are different. Back to push-to-talks. If you're running a push-to-talk, especially in with an external speaker on it like this, everybody can hear your radio. It will give your position away. So if you're doing anything tactical, use an earpiece instead of this right here. This is just a cursory overview. Who are you going to be talking to? I would submit that it's more important that your team, your tribe, your mutual assistance group can communicate simplex, line of sight, from one radio to the other with each other than it is for you to be able to communicate out into the world, or better yet, passively listen to all the transmissions that everybody else is making out there. And there's definitely a value to having that ability. There's a lot of value to that. In the county that I live in, all of the emergency response frequencies, they're still analog. I can hear everybody all the time, what they're talking about, what they're doing, their position on the map, etc. And again, this is incredibly basic, but even if they're running, privacy codes, encryption, they're on VTAC channels, there's ways to hear all that shit too. So it proves the point that there's no such thing as secure communications. Even if you have perfectly secure commo, I might not hear what you're saying, but I can hear that you're saying it. And I can direction find your location because you're transmitting. It's a thing, yo. Accessories, push to talk, etc. You need to be able to talk to each other because logistics and commo go hand in hand, and logistics wins wars. Not that I think you need to be fighting a war, but I think you might be embroiled in something that resembles one if we go far enough down the pathway that we're on. I will also tell you, if you find yourself at any point up against, we'll just say state level and above entities, and I am not saying that you should, I'm saying that if you do, the last thing you should do is key your radio mic. There are capabilities that exist on the governmental side of things. It's not just to direction find your location and, drop a grenade on your head with a drone. Although I've experienced that on multiple occasions with Op4 until I learned my lesson. They can, and ask me how I know, they can shut your radio down. They can reprogram your radio. They can jam your signal. They will sample your voice and run it through a spectrum analyzer, isolate your radio, and then use a replication of your voice to issue commands to the other people on your team. Ask me how I know. So, again, part of commo is knowing how to talk and when to talk. Another huge part of commo is knowing when to shut the F up. Which brings me back around to our friends in the ham community. Sometimes, just because you have a radio doesn't mean you need to use it. Bless y'all. Shalom.